we're going to go ahead and get started, Courtney. Thank you. Huge shout out to our tech person, Courtney Andrews of the International Civil Society Working Group. She'll be helping to moderate the chat and helping us with the tech this evening. So I definitely want to give her a huge shout out for being with us tonight. As I had mentioned earlier, my name is Dr. Pamela Felder-Small, and I am president and founder of Black Doctorates Matter. I'm also a member of the International Civil Society Working Group for the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. This is a collaborative effort and what we call a side event for the Permanent Forum fourth session that will be held the week of April 14th until the 17th. And so we'll be dropping some information in the chat about how you can learn more about the Permanent Forum and the work that the International Society does in terms of representing the diaspora and several organizations across the globe who are working to represent people of African descent. So tonight I'm really excited to be joined by some phenomenal individuals who will be sharing some perspectives on their work as doctoral degree holders, as doctoral students, as practitioners, as researchers, as scholars, as advocates and activists who are doing the work for people of African descent and have experienced the journey towards doctoral degree completion. I wanted to share a brief presentation with you all this evening to give you a little bit of context about who I am and the work that I'm doing. This is the 10-year anniversary of Black Doctorates Matter. And so we are so fortunate to be in a position to be able to hold this presentation tonight and to be able to share this work with you. So we really see this as a momentous occasion to be able to have this conversation tonight. So a little bit about our panelists first, and then I'll go into the presentation. We will share a link. It's been shared already, but I think we need to reshare the link of our panelists, some background information so you can get to know them. But I will share a few words about who they are and why they are so important to me. First, Dr. Sydney Freeman is a good friend, a collaborator, an author, a co-author, just a really great colleague in the field. He's been doing work on this topic of doctoral education and leadership, and now really thriving in the area of liberation. And so I'm so glad that he is here tonight. Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Dr. Walter Parrish is here, and Walter was actually one of the first doctoral students I worked with, and I would consider a founding member of Black Doctorates Matter. So he was really on the ground floor helping to shape the ideas to get us to this point. So I'm so grateful to see him to be here actually, but to also receive his doctorate because he was a doctoral student when I met him, and certainly now doing wonderful work as Assistant Vice President for Faculty Affairs at UNBC. So very proud of the work that you're doing. Nathaniel Smith is a doctoral student at the University of Colorado, Denver. He's also doing this wonderful work as one of the founders of Dissertating While Black. I've had the fortunate opportunity of being able to work with him on one of his activities. And so it's been wonderful to collaborate with him and to see him in this space, and to also get to know his sphere, building his sphere of influence in this work, very much related to the work that we developed, Black Doctorates Matter 10 years ago. So it's wonderful to see this work grow and evolve. Miss Shalinda Greer is probably the one person who I'm really sort of getting to know in the justice community. I've been able to work with her and have really just been inspired by her voice and the energy that she brings to the justice community and the justice work. So I was so excited to hear about her pursuit of the doctoral degree, and definitely wanted her to share her vision in terms of her journey tonight. So that's a little bit of information about our panelists, and I'm going to also ask them to share a few words once we get started with the panel discussion. But I have a brief presentation that I want to share with you, and to really lend some context about where we are. Of course, we could not have done this work without the people that have come before us. And when I acknowledge ancestors, I'm also talking about individuals who have Black doctors who have received their doctoral degrees and have gone on, but have so much to teach us and to tell us about their journeys. Our elders, members of the International Civil Society Working Group, I welcome you. Of course, our participants and our supporters, and our panelists this evening. With all of the turmoil going on in our country right now, one of the things I have been really interested in doing is just looking through literature and getting a sense for how these kinds of issues we're facing right now have been addressed by scholars who have done this work before us. And I was really drawn to the work of Dr. Malana Karenga, who wrote about the very first PhD program in Black Studies at Temple University. And one of the things he does is he uses the philosophical approach of Sankofa in his work, but he also provided this very compelling quote. And he says, for an education to be useful to the community meant that it must cultivate and produce intellectual activists, scholars, and professionals who are committed and prepared to serve the community, to aid in its struggles for cultural and political liberation, social and racial justice, and political and economic empowerment. And so, in talking about his sort of review of the very first PhD program in Black Studies at Temple University, he draws on this concept of Sankofa that I find to be so empowering in terms of looking at our experience. Sankofa literally translates into "it is not wrong to go back for something that is forgotten." And it's a wonderful cultural artifact and Ghanaian Akan philosophical tradition that, for many scholars like Temple, who has looked at this, who has used the concept of Sankofa in her work, tells us that it helps us to reconstitute a fragmented cultural past. And for me in doctoral education, that has meant so much in terms of thinking about the Black doctoral experience in terms of reporting and in terms of our representation and belief systems. And so, in terms of the work that has really guided me in terms of doctoral education, scholarship in general, that has looked like, thinking about our data representation in various surveys, like the survey of our doctorates, our representation in studies and statistical portraits done by the National Research Council, what our experiences look like in terms of our disciplinary representation, our socialization experiences, the centrality of our perceptions and our lived experiences, and what our pathways to the doctorate have looked like in terms of the HBCU experience, our doctoral degrees. Most of our doctoral degrees are conferred in education and the humanities. Literally looking at doctoral student perceptions of faculty diversity, and then also perceptions of of campus climate. And so generally, research in doctoral education, how I have sort of studied it, is focused on looking at the attrition of doctoral students, Most of the attrition in doctoral programs has been represented by Black and Brown communities. In terms of who enrolls, who competes, and why does it take so long for folks from Black and Brown communities to complete doctoral degrees. And when I say attrition in terms of Black and Brown communities, I'm speaking generally in terms of racial and ethnic composition of individuals pursuing doctoral degrees. In terms of changing demographics, looking at how there's a need for doctoral education to become increasingly diverse, and that certainly involves the need for more support of the Black doctoral experience in terms of um, relationships with faculty and relationships with administrators, and just general support needs in terms of being able to um, pursue doctoral education and transcend barriers to degree completion. And then I've also looked at the need to increase support for transition into career pathways, faculty career pathways, and then also um, the need for institutional programs to support that. Uh, Doctoral student socialization has sort of been the main framework that I have used in terms of looking at these issues, and it has sort of run across the lines of organizational socialization, student focused socialization, and racial and cultural socialization. And so, in terms of the organizational perspective, looking at how context shapes the doctoral experience, the key relationships that influence success, and then also looking at the ways that we're represented in the data in terms of the statistical portraits of degree attainment. In terms of the student focused perspective, I've looked at prior socialization, looking at that HBCU experience and other experiences that have helped shape um, uh, doctoral degree completion and academic success, looking specifically at the stages of the doctoral process. And then in terms of the racial and cultural experience, really building on research that focuses on the dimensions of racial and cultural diversity, looking at the systemic, structural, psychological, and behavioral dimensions related to the Black doctoral experience. And so Sankofa has been really wonderful in terms of making sense of higher education concepts and theories. And I uh, really appreciate Nancy Schlossberg's work on mattering, hence the importance of the concept sort of shaping the work of Black Doctorates Matter. And so there are really three key ideas from the Schlossberg theory on mattering that helps me to kind of understand our experiences and especially the applicability of Sankofa. So the first is ego extension, and that is knowing that others are proud of our contributions. How do we navigate our academic spaces with the knowledge that we have? And how do we increase the awareness of our contributions? Sankofa has also been really important in terms of thinking about being noticed or understanding why our work has been unnoticed in many ways. And Sankofa has really provided that cultural permission to ask questions about our ontological positionality, taking notice of the nature of reality in various contexts and our lived experiences. And of course, our importance, right? We see our importance in cultural frameworks like CRT, but also in philosophical approaches like Sankofa, helping us to identify with and develop cultural artifacts related to the Black doctoral experience. And so, one of the things that I've really been excited about in terms of thinking about Sankofa related to the Black doctoral experience is thinking about this within a global context. And one of the scholars who is doing phenomenal work on doctoral education with a global focus is Dr. Marisi Narad. And she has written this book towards a global core value system in doctoral education. And one of the things the scholars call for in this book is the establishment of a joint value system rooted in the universal principles of the United Nations Human Rights Charter. They talk about that it should be that this joint value system should be based on respect for the individual and aim for an equilibrium of knowledges from the South, the North, the East, and West, including indigenous knowledge and systems in an ecology of knowledge. And so what's really important about that is this connection to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And so when I started reading more of Nerisi's work and seeing the applicability of Sankofa, I really wanted to sort of increase my focus on the importance of human rights in terms of its applicability to the Black doctoral experience and to my work with Black Doctorates Matter, but then also wanted to raise the question to other individuals about the ways in which human rights is applicable to their experience and then also to the work that they're doing. And so if we take a look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and we'll post a link for you to review those principles in a moment. In particular, I'm compelled to think about Articles 26 and 27. And in particular, number 2 of Article 26, education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and the strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. It shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations, racial and religious groups, and shall further the activities of the United Nations for the maintenance of peace. And then for Article 27, number 2, everyone has the right to the protection of the moral and material interests resulting from any scientific, literary, or artistic production of which he or she or they is the author. So I think it's really important for us to have a conversation tonight to kind of raise awareness about how these principles apply to our work, and then also to raise the question, have you thought about the applicability of human rights in the work that you're doing? And if you haven't, in what ways could you consider maybe thinking about the applicability of human rights in your work? So Sankofa is a commitment to social, restorative, reparative justice and doctoral education research, and it does several things as I continue to think about it in the applicability. In its applicability to my work, and that is, the process of expanding ways of understanding and critiquing doctoral education where a cultural artifact is significant. The way that Sankofa helps us to understand the contributions to the Black and African American diasporic perspectives on doctoral education scholarship and honoring our pathways and experiences. And then also acknowledges our educational history where Black and African American doctoral students have been forgotten, ignored, or excluded. Presents research on the value and impact of race and culture in the doctoral process, and centers the experiences of historically marginalized students and our journey toward the PhD and beyond, and consideration of our existing research on doctoral education. And so the question for tonight, in what ways is our work reflective of human rights, past, present, and future? And I think it's a really important question to ask in these times as we're seeing the dismantling of DEI and the dismantling of the Department of Education and the dismantling of so many other important systems and organizations and practices and policies that are so critical to the protection of our human rights. And so this panel discussion is a contribution to the permanent forum themes on policy making and systemic racism for a human rights-based approach and a call to action to increase awareness about the role of human rights in research and doctoral education. And so the main question for tonight, I'm hoping that the doctoral students on on the Zoom will consider is, in what ways have you considered the role of human rights in your research and or your role as a practitioner working with doctoral students, or if you're a doctoral student, how is it applicable to your work? And so I think it's really important for us to have this conversation in terms of us thinking about our experiences as global citizens. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to turn it over to our very first panelist, Dr. Freeman. If you could share just a little bit of background about about who you are, and then if you could respond to the prompts for the evening, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Dr. Felder-Small, for this wonderful opportunity. You have been a distinguished scholar in our field, and I'm so thankful for your over a decade's work to ensure that people know that Black doctorates surely do matter. With that being said, I am a professor of leadership at the University of Idaho. I've been there for a decade, but prior to that, I served as an administrator of a teaching and learning center at Tuskegee University. I'm the founder and president of the Liberation Movement, where we focus on empowering Black folks, period. And with that, my research focuses now on pro-Black leadership, HBCU leadership, and Black education. I'm originally from Camden, New Jersey. I attended Pine Forge Academy, which is one of 4 historically Black boarding academies. That's something that I like to say. I was there for 4 years, so I was away from home. I've been away from home since the age of 14. And I also attended Oakwood University. I'm sure one of the main highlights that Dr. Felder-Small would love for me to say was that recently in November, I served as a United Nations Human Rights Fellow, a part of the program for people of African descent in Geneva, Switzerland, where I focus my work on advocating around the issues of reparations and how we could better fund and support NGOs and nonprofit organizations that are doing the work on the ground. And so one of the gaps that we saw while we were there is that a lot of white organizations would be speaking on behalf of Black folks. Let me say that again. We have these white organizations, white-led organizations that were speaking on behalf of Black folks, and the Black-led organizations did not have the infrastructure because of financial constraints to put them in position to be in the context of the UN. You need to be accredited. And so there are certain things that need to be in place. And so I was advocating for the UN to put aside resources to ensure that Black-led organizations could be undergirded and supported so they could do advocacy work. So with that, so do you want me to answer each question, or how would you like me to do that?
Yeah, if you could just, answer each question, spend a minute or two on each question, that would be great.
Oh, that's fine. So the first prompt that I have was asking the question, what inspired you to pursue a doctoral degree, and what continues to be a source of inspiration as you continue in your work as a scholar practitioner? So with that, I wanted to be a college and university president. I attended Oakwood University. At the time, it was Oakwood College, and a HBCU in Huntsville, Alabama. And in my senior year, the president at the time, Delbert Baker, allowed me to shadow him. And so that was a major thing because I wasn't the president of student government or the vice president or something like that. I just had my own little student organization that I founded on campus. So generally at a private institution, you're not going to get access to the board in those private meetings unless you are in one of those roles. And then even then that's limited. But he allowed me to get the full sit in private meetings and more open meetings. And from there, I love the way that in which he operated and kind of navigated the room. And so I said, yeah, that's what I want to do. I wanted to be a college or university president. And so from there, I found out that I could get a degree in higher ed administration / student affairs. Now, I know that's not a big thing for you guys, but that was a huge thing for me because imagine someone who's a student activist finds out there's a degree in student affairs and leadership. That was amazing to me. So I had that opportunity for my master's at Auburn, and then completed my PhD in higher ed leadership with a focus on the college and university presidency. And so that was the goal, the college and university presidency. Right now, I'm still a professor, but we'll see in the future what may happen in that direction. But I have been inspired by the opportunity to steward the history of Black people and create initiatives that lead to the flourishing and thriving of our community. So even at the University of Idaho, I have started a couple of initiatives, signature initiative. One is the Black History Research Lab. The other has been the Black Research Institute for Flourishing and Thriving. These initiatives have been honored by our state senate, national historical societies, all those kinds of things. So a lot of people are saying, how did this happen in Idaho? Well, we pushed to make it happen. And then we had the Black and African American Cultural Center. Now, in December, that was I don't know how you would call it, but it's no longer in existence because of some of the politics, both at the national and the state level. But there was major impact made in those areas, and so those are ways in which you can see that I've been inspired by my doctoral training to ensure that our Black students, faculty, and staff are being treated well on campus. And so particularly through the Black Research Institute for Flourishing and Thriving, the goal is to ensure that faculty, staff, students, and administrators who are of African descent know that they have an environment that they can flourish and thrive. So the third prompt is, in what ways do you embrace your racial and cultural identities in your scholarship and practice? So almost all of my scholarship now focuses in on Black folks and empowering Black folks, period. That's where my focus lies. I think we're in an interesting time right now, and I don't have time to be playing the same politics that earlier on in my career you tried to navigate things and you worried about your institution and what they said. Listen, now if we're talking about the human rights of our people, whether it's in a college or university setting or in another setting in our communities, one of the things I'm most happy about is being able to take the work that we've been doing on campus to the community. And in some ways there can be constraints. So for instance, I've been able to make some bridges using my nonprofit, the Liberation Movement. An example of that is this initiative that we recently have started, which is called Communiversity. And Communiversity is a life skills program where it's targeted for those between the ages of 18 and 24. And we're talking about topics that are empowering young people with topics that fill in the gaps of things that we may assume they may know, but they may not know. And I'll put that link to that information in the chat later on. But essentially, how to buy a house, how to buy a car, office politics, things like that. If we want our people to thrive, we can't just have that information on campus. We got to get it to people. We have to get it to young people who may be going into the trades or something else. And so we're doing that through those means. And so when I'm teaching in particular my Black students, or in particular my students of color, in which I'm entrusted with at the doctoral level, I'm always talking about how can you translate what you're learning and what you're doing in the classroom, what you're instructing on in the classroom, how you can take it to the community. And so that is a way in which sometimes you can get caught up in just trying to meet the standards of the university, and the university doesn't have the vision that you have. And so the nonprofit angle has helped me to be able to make that bridge where the university and so use the legitimacy of my stature as a faculty member to use my nonprofit to make that bridge to the community. I also would say I am a race man, a pro-Black scholar / practitioner who is a Pan-Africanist in orientation, while specifically highlighting my ethnic group, Black Americans and descendants of enslaved Americans. So the fourth prompt is, in what ways have you considered the role of human rights in your research and practice? I talked a little bit about that, but human rights are at the core of my work. As a UN fellow, I focus on advocating for reparations and the infrastructure and capacity building for Black-owned and operated NGOs and nonprofits. And then locally, I engage in creating initiatives that help Black people have a sense of belonging and self-efficacy, even in spaces where they are underrepresented. And so when you think about a place like Idaho, just the initial question is there Black people in Idaho? There's we everywhere. And so my goal is to empower us in those spaces. So a lot of times you're doing a dual job, and I'm sure others on the panel will talk about this. The dual job is to both support the Black folks, right? But in some ways, I hate having to think about training white folks, but in some ways, those who are sincere and open to learning in a sincere way, I try to make myself avail myself and make myself available so I can help them to create an environment that is supportive of our black folks. And then lastly, the fifth prompt is, what is one thing you can share about your experience that could be helpful to anyone pursuing doctoral study?
Yeah, so this is about... Oops.
Okay. So my answer to that was, through pursuing your doctorate, you are developing tools that will help you solve problems, not only in your chosen field of study, but beyond. Your interests, passions, and challenges you may need to solve may change, but you will have developed skills to address a myriad of issues. I give you an example of that really quick, and I know we got to go. I remember doing a study on the ways in which we could strengthen higher education doctoral programs, and I was asking the question, did higher education administration doctoral programs prepare people better for leadership in higher education administration than those who may get degrees in the sciences or the humanities or in other disciplines? And when asking one particular professor, he was saying, well, the real focus of earning a doctoral degree is to give you tools to solve problems. And those tools that you learn can be applied to different challenges that you may find in life, right? And so what I have learned as an interdisciplinary scholar, someone who in undergrad did an interdisciplinary undergraduate degree with focuses in vocal performance, public relations, and business administration, not only did I learn a language of different disciplines, but learned how to use different language and tools from those different disciplines to solve the myriad of problems that we have. So I wasn't intimidated to learn some skills using my building off of my doctorate to help in the area of history or help in the area of religion, because those were areas on my campus or areas in which my students need strengthening. I developed some of those skills. And so I would encourage those who are listening to not limit themselves to their particular discipline, but to be thinking more expansive, always being a lifelong learner beyond the doctorate. So thank you so much, Dr. Felder-Small, for the opportunity. And I'll turn it back over to you and your team.
Yes, yes. So, Dr. Freeman, we shared a little information about you, really huge information about you in the chat as being a history maker, the very first Black man promoted to full professor in Idaho, the University of Idaho. So he's definitely representing. He's just done tremendous work in terms of building infrastructure at the University of Idaho, so that the Black doctoral experience is represented. The Black experience in general is represented there. So we thank you for the tremendous work that you're willing to do, and the way that you continue to forge forward, to represent our work. So thank you. We're going to turn it over to Dr. Walter Parrish. Dr. Walter Parrish is a dear friend of mine. We haven't talked in a while, because I know you've been busy, but he has just been, as the years have gone on, I have really sort of thought more deeply about the significance of our relationship and the importance of working with doctoral students who are just doing tremendous work. And you're obviously one of them. Black Doctorates Matter would not be here today if it wasn't for your generous contributions very early on. So congratulations to you and your new position and all of the work that you're doing. I'm so glad that you were able to join us tonight. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Felder-Small. First, good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Walter Parrish, Dr. Walter Parrish, I'm Assistant Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And just to go off of what Dr. Felder-Small says, like, this is really kind of full circle for me, and reflecting on 10 years of Black Doctorates Matter, being there in the beginning and, in a small way, supporting some of the earlier work. Was really meaningful to me. I remember the first day I reached out to Dr. Felder-Small, just on a whim, like, hey, like, I'm interested in this work and I have a team of folks who are interested in this work, and we would love to work with you. And so I'm really grateful and proud of what Black Doctorates Matters has evolved into, and you have been a mentor and an advocate for me in my journey and in my belief, and your belief in my work. And so I really appreciate you. And so in my role as Assistant Vice Provost, I work to ensure that our faculty recruitment, retention, and advancement efforts truly reflect the values of equity and inclusion, and not just in name, but in true practice and in structure. And in my work, I don't always use the term human rights, but I think that's core to it. I'm working to ensure that people are treated fairly, that they're supported fully, and that they're able to thrive with respect and dignity, and that the institution values them, and not just for what they bring to the institution. And so when hiring practices are inclusive, when promotion systems are transparent, when faculty feel like they belong, that's not just good policy, but that's also honoring the basic rights people deserve. So I would consider myself an education scientist by training, and my research focuses on how systems in higher education support or fail to support those who have been historically pushed to the margins. And I'm especially invested in creating policies and programs that center Black people and other historically marginalized groups, and anyone else who carries both brilliance and burden in academic spaces. I was born and raised in West Philadelphia, PA. So I'm shaped by communities that teach you how to lead with purpose and persistence, even when the odds aren't stacked in your favor, right? So why did I pursue my PhD? I love this question because I often tell folks, one, I didn't pursue it just to have more credentials or more letters behind my name. That is not why I do it, and I don't think that's a reason why anyone should do it. I did it because I felt like I needed more tools in my toolkit. My friends are always surprised at some of the answers that I find or that I infer based on, the tools that I've used. And I'm like, I didn't get all this training for nothing, right? And so to Dr. Freeman's point, like I needed better tools because I had questions. I had big questions. I had questions about access. I had questions about power. I had questions about knowledge and who gets to shape knowledge and who gets left out. Why do brilliant people who look like me get overlooked? Why do our systems reward the same people and the same voices while calling the rest of us diversity hires? And I wanted to understand higher education from the inside out, and so that I could help reimagine what it could look like. I didn't want to just sit in the room. I wanted to change what the room looked like, right, and how it felt, and who gets access to the room and who thrives inside of that room. And so when faculty, students, or staff from marginalized community are overlooked or undervalued or pushed out, that's not just an academic issue, that's a human rights issue. And so what keeps me going is knowing that the work that I do, whether through mentorship or policy or program design, helps others not only gain access, but really thrive in spaces that weren't built for us. And honestly, it's when a student or even an early career colleague sees someone like me in my position and thinks like, wow, if he's in the room, maybe I can do it too. And so that's some of the motivation behind my work. Being a Black man in academia, I carry a lot of awareness that my presence in these spaces is shaped by history, by the legacy of exclusion of Black people, and by the brilliance in us that persisted anyway. And so my identity carries meaning, and not just socially, but structurally. And that means I'm not only navigating personal perceptions and misperceptions, I'm navigating institutions that weren't designed for someone like me. And so layered on that is this expectation, right? Expectation as a Black person to overperform, to represent, to be leading without making mistakes, and to carry the responsibility, not just for myself, but for the people who are coming behind me. And so that awareness doesn't make me less objective. It really helps to hone and sharpen my commitment to fairness and equity. And it keeps me grounded in why the work matters. And so equity isn't just a concept that I study, it's really something that I try to live every day through how I lead, through how I teach, and through how I advocate for others. And so it's not just professional, it's personal, and it's political. So talking about human rights, I think we oftentimes think of human rights in terms of policy documents and international law, but I think I see them in my work in hiring committees, right? And who gets mentored, who gets promoted, who feels safe in their department, or who feels safe elsewhere on campus. And so higher education should be a place where everyone is treated with dignity, although we always know that that's not always the case. But it should happen not just on paper, but in real life, in real time. And so my work hopefully pushes institutions to ask, are we creating conditions where people can thrive with dignity? And are we honoring the labor and leadership of those who we say that we care about? And so if education is to be this public good, then human rights must be a part of how we design and how we lead the institutions, and not just an afterthought, but really as a foundation to the work that we're doing. And so that's why I work to change the systems and not just diversify them, but hopefully make them more equitable and more just. Because belonging shouldn't just be, a checkbox or, a struggle all the time. It should really be baked in and built into what the institution, to the institutions that we're reimagining. So if you are a doctoral student or you're thinking about the doctoral path, here's what I'll say to you. The journey is not easy. I started in 2014. I didn't get done until 2023. I was done my coursework in 3 years, but there were so many other hoops and hurdles that no one ever tells you about, no one ever prepares you for. And so the journey isn't easy, but neither are you. You've got to stay rooted in your why. And I think that clarity in your why will really help you when things get hard, because they will get hard. Um, People are going to question your ideas because it's academia and that's what we do. But also there are other reasons as to why people will question your ideas, but people will also question the tone of how you say things. They'll question your very presence, and let them, right? And what they don't understand is that you're not here to play it safe. You're here to change the game, right? You're here to shift the game. That's why I'm here, right? So recommendation is stay grounded also by finding your people, finding community. I know future Dr. Smith is going to probably talk about one of the communities that he's built. Surround yourself with folks who see your brilliance even on your worst day, because the world is often focused on finding your flaws than your strength. And silence those inner voices that tell you you need to constantly fight and earn your place in rooms that you already belong in. So you don't need permission to be powerful. You already are, right? You already belong, particularly if you're already in the doctoral program. And when you make it and when you finish, reach back, continue to mentor others and light the path for someone else.
Thank you, Walter. And I really, appreciate you drawing that connection between your work and the relevance to human rights, right? It's not out in the open, right, in terms of human rights being explicit, but it's human rights work at the very core. And this is exactly one of the reasons why I wanted to have this panel tonight, is because, I felt the same way, doing this work. I'm not, I wasn't preaching about human rights. But then when I started to get in the human rights community, I'm like, yes, this is really about, at the core, it's really about human rights. So thank you so much for sharing your perspective. To, at this time, move on now to future Dr. Nathaniel Smith, who's going to share some perspectives about his work. So we're looking forward to hearing more from you, future Dr. Smith.
Thank you so much, Dr. Felder-Small, for this wonderful invitation. I feel just so humble to be a part of this distinguished panel, and certainly giving deference to my colleagues tonight. I feel so incredibly blessed to be part of such a executive leadership team tonight, just to share a few thoughts with all of these wonderful folks. So again, just supreme thanks to you and Dr. Parrish for laying the groundwork for what we have created recently, and certainly just thank you to Dr. Freeman and soon to be Dr. Greer as well. Nathaniel Smith. I am an ordained minister and a doctoral student at the University of Colorado, Denver. I understand that Philly's in the building, but I am originally from New York, Bronx born and bred, but my family originates from the South, and I do have ancestral ties to West Africa. So that's why I'm really, really excited about tonight, just being in community with Afrocentric folks, which I truly love. My wife is from Jamaica, so she brings the Caribbean flair in our home with our 4 children. I am rounding out my coursework, and my research focus centers on the lived experiences of Black males in doctoral education. And I am hopefully will be proposal ready by the end of this semester at the earliest, this summer by the latest, so that way I can kickstart this research and finally cross over into Dr. Land. I'm just also just want to just shout out my wife and just all the other wonderful folks who came out to support. I see Jack Drummond from the Disdated While Black community, Donovan Griffin from and Lawrence from the CUNY community, as well as Craig Michaels, and then my CU Denver folks, Dr. Buchanan, and my colleague Arlette Hardy, and my brother Elliot Adams from the doctoral student writing collective. I'm just so grateful and blessed to have some of these wonderful people come out and just sharing support. So in answer to the prompts, again, I am originally from New York. I graduated from Hobart College undergrad and majored in English, had 2 minors in African American Studies and Sociology. I was the first Black student trustee in the college's history, and that in and of itself was a great accomplishment and an achievement. I got my master's from Lehman College in New York, where my thesis focused on the self-efficacy and goal attainment of Black males in community college settings and their leadership potential. So to hear Dr. Freeman talking about leadership, my ears are like, all right, I love it. And so my doctoral program focuses on higher ed leadership. And to answer the question, what really precipitated me launching an interest in pursuing a doctorate really falls on that lens of leadership and equity. For years, I've been just navigating certain circles and positions and spaces of leadership, not just by title, but by influence and just by the work, being called into certain conversations, being tapped to lead certain initiatives. So, for example, one of my passions, because I grew up in a home that was full of men, my parents had 6 boys. So of course, stuff was always being broken and just lots of fights and stuff. But I love being around men. I love that's something that I love. And so one of the initiatives that I created some years ago, which is currently being led by my colleague Donovan Griffin, is the ASAP Men's Roundtable, which is a comprehensive male leadership program that focuses on developing young Black men in community college settings. And so I was trying to figure out a way to parlay that interest into a doctoral program. And initially, I was looking at that, but then I began to examine myself, and my research topic began to shift to looking at the socialization of Black males in doctoral education and what that looks like. And so that's currently what I am pursuing and investigating. And of course, it's a journey. A big shout out to you, Dr. Pam, for again, I will always be grateful just for your research. Through your research, I found out about Dr. Edward Boucher, the first Black man to receive his doctorate in the US. And that has really served as a source of inspiration for me. And it's helped me just to understand, as you have mentioned, Dr. Parrish, that us Black folk, we've been doing this stuff for years. And that's part of my how I tether myself to Africanity and Afrocentricity because of the fact that Africa is the birthplace of not just civilization, but education, excellence, intelligence, brilliance. And for me, the pursuit of the doctorate is my call back to that, as you mentioned earlier, Dr. Pam, about Sankofa. So that's me returning spiritually and intellectually to that space. Also, just wanted to lay groundwork for legacy building in my home and to make sure that my wife and my children can understand that this is something that they can do. And you mentioned earlier, Dr. Parrish, that it's not just something to build myself up or give myself a big head, but really to show those that I love that anything is possible if you just believe and put in the hard work. So ways that my racial and cultural identities are reflected in my scholarship and practice. As you all have mentioned tonight, the creation of Dissertating While Black is a virtual community, support community for Black males pursuing their doctorate. Since I started my program, I've been part of several other support groups, but I was really looking for something that reflected me and who I am. And so in that pursuit, I decided to create something that was unique and really reflected my sensibility and really spoke to a community of Black males, and that was an antidote to Black misandry. And Dr. Parrish, you mentioned earlier just about how Black males are situated in educational spaces, and just the institutional violence and harm that's enacted upon Black males, specifically. And we see it even in society where Black males continue to be the most underperformed, the lowest unemployed. Uh, there's overrepresentation in the criminal injustice system. But if we look at how Black males are situated in education, they are not the problem. It is the material conditions that are created, that forces Black males to morph into these um, oppressive positions. And so dissertating while Black really contradicts that, and serves as an antithesis by way of providing support through bonding, connecting, supporting, a space of vulnerability, sharing, community. And these things are spoken about by Dr. Derek Brooms in his work. He talks about micro communities. And so Dissertating While Black is really serves as a sort of a micro community where um, us as Black male doctoral students can use our voices powerfully as a counter narrative to everything that really speaks out against us in our pursuit. And uh, and then rounding out with the last two questions, considering the role of human rights in my research and practice. You mentioned earlier, Dr. Pam, about Article 26 and the full development of human personality. And again, Dissertating While Black really speaks to that because we center the somebodyness or the humanity of Black males and elevating the agency of Black males during their doctoral journey. And I know that Temple University is in the house tonight. And so we certainly want to just honor the work of Dr. Molefi Kete Asante, who established Afrocentricity in speaking about the agency of Black folks and how that's important to for their development, for their power, for their socialization. And really, Dissertating While Black serves as a resistant space, a space for counter narrative, a space of persistence, and ultimately a space of success where we celebrate each other on our journey. And one thing that I would share lastly for folks that are considering pursuing a doctorate, Dr. Martin Luther King once said that there is an almost universal quest for easy answers and half-baked solutions. Nothing pains some people more than having to think. Pursuing the doctorate helps to expand the mind, and it leads you on a journey of not just intellectualism, but sheer brilliance. And by brilliance, I mean just shining bright. The effervescence that comes from our Africanity, our Afrocentricity, our rich heritage as Black people that we find in our community, in our churches, in our schools, in our spaces of resistance. And so it is something that I would encourage any Black male to do, certainly if they have the means and support to do so, because you will be laying the groundwork for legacy. So thank you again, Dr. Pam, for this opportunity to share.
All right, future Dr. Smith, thank you very much. So wonderful to see the virtual communities and how they're developing now compared to where Black Doctorates Matter was 10 years ago. And it's so exciting to see what you've done with the Dissertating While Black community. And thank you so much for the ways you continue to forge forward with that work, and for the individuals who joined us tonight from the Dissertating While Black community. Thank you for being here. One of the main findings from my dissertation, I'm not going to tell you how many years ago, but but one of the main findings was in terms of support, social support, was the church, the Black church. And so I'm going to introduce our next panelist because I was connected to her through my justice work. through my faith community in the Black church. And we're on the Justice Watch committee together. And so we talk a lot about social justice and issues in the United States as well as abroad. And when I listened to Shalinda share her comments in one of our Justice Watch meetings that happened very early on a Saturday morning, I knew that this was someone that I wanted to work with and someone who I wanted to join the panel. And I knew that given her work as a doctoral student, she would have much to offer in this discussion tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to you, future Dr. Greer. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pam, for having me. This is a heavy lift coming behind all you great foundational leaders, the ones that have set the foundation for us and for me. Is much appreciated. I'm here in Chicago, and I'm gonna start from my bachelor's to try to build up so that you go follow me in the story. I did my undergrad at Chicago State University, majoring in criminal justice. I did my first master's degree at Lewis University, majoring in criminal justice and social justice. And then I had been in education for a minute. I owned and operated my own child care center for years, and I saw that kids needed the after school program, and the reading, the fluency, and the literacy was like, I need to be able to help them in a better way and a greater platform. So I went back to school and got my second master's degree in education, and I'm SPED certified as well. And as far as my doctoral degree, I am focusing basically on curriculum instruction and assessment. The purpose for my writing is to explore humanities high school teachers' perspective of struggles that they face, connecting the culture of responsive, relevant instructional strategies within their classrooms with the current curriculum. Oftentimes, students don't see themselves within the literature and the writing that they see every day. So I wanted to be able to go back and I listen to what they say in the classroom. Sometimes just listening to that sidebar conversation, why you're not interested in this thing and that, it don't make sense. And they don't see any people. They don't see the reflection of their community within the curriculum that they are reading. And so, to be honest, I switched my focus. I wanted to write about this. This is what I want to write about. But when I joined the doctoral program, they didn't say, when you get ready to write, make sure you already then picked out what your concentration is. So I'm like, okay, it was enough time that I was able to get in contact with the program chair and be able to shift it, because my thing is I want to be able to write and to be able to help the students that I see in the Black and brown communities. I get so emotional. Y'all just don't know. I'll be up in here crying in a minute. But my thing is I work with the Museum of Contemporary Arts and I help them write curriculum. And oftentimes I see within the classroom, I go around and do some observations, and I don't see a lot of times that other people outside of the Black and the brown people being able to find that connection for our students. Oftentimes, even I heard students will say like, I'm sick of doing this element chart. What does this have to do with me? But if you turn around and tell them when you go into the doctor's office, if your potassium drop or your hemoglobin is off, you're going to be laid out somewhere. So my thing was being able to address the correlation of what they're reading in everyday books so that they understand where it fit in their everyday life. So I work with, like I said, the Museum of Contemporary Arts, the Chicago Architect Center. I help them write curriculum as well. And a lot of times I'm noticing that even here at the Shed Aquarium, they're shifting the curriculum to try to be inclusive, but they need the Black and the brown vision. They need the voice. How can I work with this population if you don't understand what the needs are? So my thing is to be able to come in culturally responsive teaching and also work with educators as well, because oftentimes the opportunities that seem like they were there, they weren't always in plain view, or they was not there for reach. So I think for me, it's being able to set the foundation with equity and inclusion to be able to bring that not only into the classroom, but into the school and from the school into the district. Sometimes it says it starts from the top down, but sometimes teachers going from place to place and doing mentoring, it makes a difference within the community that we are staying in or residing or what have you. And I want to say basically the reason why I wanted to get my doctorates again is to be able to provide my community the substance, being able to be the voice or someone that they can lean in on. Oftentimes, I would say when we get information, we don't like to share. Why are we holding on to it? Like, what God got for you, you're going to get it. So, share and make it an easy path for others. I think if I get the tools that I need, I feel as though we always make things better. So I can turn around and share my journey and my process with other people. And that little bit of niche or not knowing, you will be able to smooth that out, buffer, make the road easier for the people that's coming behind me. So those are the reasons why I'm going to get my doctorates. I have worked on the social justice committee through NPHC, National Pan-Hellenic Council of Chicago. I'm the chair of that, as well as the social action chair with my sorority Sigma Gamma Rho. So I have had leadership roles. I have worked in a business, owned and operated my own business. I have partnered with other principals and other people, but just to being able to go get the tools that I need in order to help the people that's in my community, I think that's most important to me. And that's the reason why I'm pursuing my doctorate degree.
Shalinda, thank you. And, I just want to say the community building and the community work is such an important part. I would not have known about the Permanent Forum if it had not been for my work in the faith community. This is how I got connected to the Permanent Forum. This is how I got connected to the human rights work. I've been doing this work now going on 4 years. And now seeing that we are, into our second international decade and working with, human rights experts, some who are on this call right now, who have done tremendous work in the community and are doing tremendous work in terms of the lift in the human rights context for this forum in April. I'm now one of the co-leads for programs for the Permanent Forum. And so I'm working behind the scenes as we are developing this tremendous program focused on human rights. And so it has really been a joy to see the human rights work in different countries, in Brazil, in Panama, in Geneva, Switzerland, just the way that it is sort of growing around the world. So I want to give a shout out to my fellow co-lead who joined us tonight, Dr. Marie Lemmy. I think I saw her going in and out of the call tonight. I don't know. You're certainly welcome to say a few words, Dr. Lemmy, if you want to, but I know she's busy building the program. She was hugely responsible for the global launch on the situation of Haiti. You may have seen the flyers that I've posted in WhatsApp on the global launch. So she continues to be a tremendous advocate for the Haitian community, and definitely thank her for being on the call tonight. So we have time for a few questions from the audience. If you all want to share some questions in the chat, we're happy to ask questions to the panel. The other thing I want to do is a little bit of housekeeping. One, there's a link to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in the chat, so please take a look at that. Again, making this connection between the work we do and the actual principles of human rights and ways that we could be more intentional about including language about human rights in our writing, in our dissertations, in ways that we could reframe the way that we are talking about our work to adjust it to a human rights lens would do so much for uplifting the importance of the human rights-based focus. The other thing is, if you want to be a member of the community, of the Permanent Forum community, there is a link to the Human excuse me, to the Permanent Forum International Civil Society Working Group Charter. So in order to be a member of the of the International Civil Society Working Group, you actually have to sign a charter to become a member. And so if you're interested and would like to begin joining our meetings, we have a town hall meeting every month, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 months during the summer when we don't meet. But during those meetings, we get to learn about all of the important human rights work that is happening across the diaspora. There's also the opportunity to join the Permanent Forum via UNTV. So you don't actually have to be in New York to attend the forum. You can watch what's going on at the forum via the UN television channel. So, check out, the work that we're doing there. It's a wonderful way to get involved. Again, just that stretch in terms of making a connection to human rights and being a little more intentional about how we can be, advocates for human rights for ourselves and others in our work. And then also, if you want to take a look at the work, additional work of our panelists, I've posted some important links to the work that they're doing. I'm also going to post my LinkedIn information, so you can connect with me there as we continue to share important resources about the work that the Permanent Forum is doing. The other thing is there will be an actual report written from this panel tonight. So we will share that with the Secretariat of the UN to let them know that this important panel has yielded some recommendations. One, I think is really important to continue thinking about how being the first in many contexts, whether it be disciplines or in terms of the work that folks are doing as practitioners, why it's important to be the first, and what do we learn when we're the first, and how can we share that important information with our communities. As Shalinda said, information sharing is critically important. One of the things I've been committed to is thinking about the contributions of Black doctors, past, present, and future. And so actually going back into looking at, as future Dr. Smith said, writing about folks like Boucher. And I know Dr. Friedman has done this as well, going back and looking at important scholars who have done this work and building infrastructure around that. It's making sure that the institution is aware of the contributions that these folks have made. Many of these folks, go unknown. So definitely want to remind folks about that important information. But we'll take some questions right now. Courtney, do we have any questions?
I don't see in the chat, but if anybody has any questions, please feel free to come off mute or just drop in the chat. I'm happy to read it for you as well to be accessible, whatever everyone prefers. Thank you.
If I
Donovan, I think Donovan has a question.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. So Donovan Griffin here. I'm co-chair of the ASMS Roundtable, as future Dr. Smith mentioned earlier. Just thank you all for the time to listen and just to absorb and things of that nature. I just want to pose a quick question in regards to, for everybody that's pursuing a doctorate right now, what routines do you create for yourself in order to maintain your mental health as you're navigating this load? And I speak from experience and having had dealt with imposter syndrome and having to again maintain my mental health and trying to find discipline in order to maintain and thrive. So how do you all maintain your mental health, and what are routines that you do for yourself in order to again stay sane through the process? And do you find yourself able to commit to that routine of taking care of yourself?
For our future doctors on the panel, if you could take that question from Donovan.
Sure. What I normally do is schedule some programs you could do full-time, some programs you could do part-time. I think it's more so if you have a bachelor's or a master's degree, the program that I'm doing is self-paced. Some programs is live where you actually pop in on that Thursday, so you know how to shift. Sometimes just look at your day and where can I get the reading done, if it's early in the morning or late at night, and then just try to plan. I'm a planner. I try to plan 2 to 3 weeks in advance what I'm going to read. And I think it's more so about getting in the groove and understanding that every article that somebody give you, you don't read a 50-page paper every 50-page paper. It's a I'm just trying to like give you like a good pointer. Like people be like, girl, nobody think you're gonna sit there and read 27, articles that's 50 pages. It's just being able to learn how to like grab what you need and reach for the tools that you need, apply them and move on. And just knowing when to take a break. Like oftentimes it depends on the person themselves. So I try to do vacation, have something to look forward to. I ride my bike. I mean, just doing different things throughout the week to try to get away from it. Sometimes it's okay to sit something down if you don't have the answer and then come back to it later.
Yeah, I would ditto future Dr. Greer, Donovan. There there are times where I feel like mental self-care, like what is that? I mean, and I too, I consider myself to be a very organized person. But doing the doctorate is a beast all by itself. And you lay on top of that, I'm a full-time professional, and I'm lifing with my wife and 4 children, and I'm a full-time human being. So, there is a lot to consider and to juggle. And so, sometimes I would just, find myself, just going to sleep, taking a nap, and a lot of Netflixing, to be honest, just to alleviate the pressure off of my brain. What would be like a good source of like mental self-care, that I would engage in. But that's just a little bit. But you have to know yourself, as soon to be Dr. Greer said.
Dr. Freeman, Dr. Parrish, you want to chime in on that one for Donovan?
I'll quickly add, and I think I mentioned before, but community. Finding your community within your program, within other online spaces and things like that is super helpful. Not just for writing, but also just to keep you grounded. I did my PhD at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and there are Black folks in Madison, but I could go all day without seeing Black folks if I was not intentional about it, right? So I think when you find your community, you're able to also talk about your experiences and realize that your experience may not be the exception, the anomaly. And so I think that helps keep you grounded in many ways and keep you sane.
Thank you, Dr. Parrish. Dr. Freeman?
So I'll take a pass on this. I haven't been a doctoral student in a long time, so I'm learning from you guys. But I'll see if there's some future questions that come up that I can better speak to.
All right, I'll turn to Ndidi Amaka.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for all the panelists. This was great. The one thing that stuck with me was Dr. Parrish, you say, I'm not here to be safe, or I'm paraphrasing, I'm here to make change. So that's good. I'm currently at Temple University, PhD in Africology student, and I'm also just recently became an African American high school history teacher. So I'm trying to balance that. So my question is more around I was thinking, in order to take some time off the end to start my dissertation early. Is that recommended? Has anybody ever done that? And also just around friendships, do you find that as you elevate into the doctoral space, you only really connect with people who are also doing doctoral degrees, or do you find that it's easier to keep friends like that around for that time being, and then maybe revert back to your other friends when you're done? I don't know. I'm just thinking, a lot of times when you encounter people not in that space, it's like they see you as some type of god, and I'm like, I'm just a regular person. So I'm finding it hard trying to make friends out, in different spaces. So if anyone wants to speak to that.
Dr. Parrish, I know you are probably the newly minted doctor on the panel, most recent doctoral degree completer. So can you respond to that? Because I mean, I think there is a shift that happens, right?
There's absolutely a shift. And I'll speak to your first point about starting the dissertation process early. And I think Dr. Freeman also might have a unique perspective as a faculty member. But I think it's ideal to want to start the early. And what does that mean exactly, right? Does that mean having your topic? And I firmly believe that you should have an idea of what you want to do for your dissertation, and you should be using the papers within your courses to get you further to that idea and researching that idea. But what your topic will actually look like and the methods of how you'll do it will look very different from the time you propose it to the actual time you start collecting your data and getting IRB. So you can do all the planning in the world, right? I planned my first semester. I was like, I want to, study this. I tried to get every paper to it, and it was helpful because it gave me a foundation. But your topic will shift and maneuver during the proposal process, even during the data collection process. It will change. And so I encourage you to be a little bit flexible and nimble and lean into that process. The second thing is around, friendships. One of the things I hated in my doctoral program was we'll be out at, restaurants and bars hanging out. And then everyone's talking about the doctoral process and talking about the dissertation, talking about the schoolwork. And it happens, right? You start hanging out with people who are in the process with you, and it becomes this thing. And I think that's very normal, but I also think it's very important to keep your non-academic friends as well, so that way they can keep you grounded. They can say, hey, you get a little too big-headed, right? Or whatever the case might be, and kind of bring you, keep you grounded. And so I think it's important, and remind them, that you're a regular person, and that, share with them about their process, about your process. And hopefully they stop asking you when you're going to be done, right?
Thank you so much.
Right, that ever looming question: are you finished yet? Did you get that degree yet? Okay, I think we have time for one or two more questions. We are really at time, but I want to make sure that we respond to at least one or two. If you have a question you want to share, please leave it in the chat, and I will make sure we get a response. But I'll go to Elliot right now.
Thank you, Dr. Felder-Small, and distinguished panelists and guests. It's an honor to be in the company of great scholars and practitioners. My question is, I'll try and abbreviate it just in the sake of time, but I am a student who started my two undergraduate degrees at brick and mortar PWIs, and my last two are virtual degrees. And shout out to future Dr. Shalinda Greer, who is at Walden University. I am also a fellow Waldenite. But my question is this, because I have a background in instructional technology. And so my question is, how do African American graduate students decide if they want to partake of a digital diaspora to a virtual school? Does graduate student representation matter, or has our society shifted since the pandemic to justify a digital diaspora? So in other words, like, I mean, our education, the ways in which we get education or get educated now has changed. So um, I guess what I'm asking is, of course, it's okay to continue your education, but is it important to stay at the brick and mortar schools, um, or I mean, it's okay to go wherever you want to go, but I mean, does representation matter in that context? And what are your thoughts? Anyone can answer.
If I can jump in, I have taught the majority of my teaching, both at the when I was a graduate student and the whole time that I have been a faculty member for almost 15 years. I've taught online, and so I would say that it depends on what your ultimate goal is, right? So we have to be honest about, if you want to work at a Ivy League institution, there is going to be an expectation that you had time at a similarly positioned institutional type. So you have to say, if I want to be a faculty member, then there are certain institutions that are known for preparing faculty members to serve those types of institutions. A lot of times, for instance, those who may get or pursue doctoral degrees at primarily online institutions known for that, are often in more practitioner spaces, or institutions that are not kind of research focused. And so I think you need to do a real assessment of and ask questions when going into the doctoral program. Where are your doctoral graduates at? What are the types of jobs that they're doing, to kind of ensure that there's alignment with where you're going? So yes, go to what institution makes the most sense for you, but also do your homework, and I think that's really important.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Freeman.
All right. I think we are at time, and I'm actually here in Philadelphia right now, visiting with my brother. I've been on travel for the last couple of weeks, and I can tell it's time to go, because the sitcoms have now come on the television set. So you may hear that in the background. But I just want to, sincerely thank all of you for joining us tonight. And we're going to continue to have these conversations, and we're going to continue to put resources out there that will elevate the importance of human rights in our work. So I really appreciate you for joining us. I see the questions in the chat. We will respond, so look out for an email from Black Doctorates Matter. We'll make sure that you get a response. So applause to everyone. Thank you so much. And we will be also following up with some additional information about the forum in April. It starts tomorrow. Happy end of March, and happy April to everyone starting tomorrow. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, Courtney, we did it. Dr. Lemmy, are you on the call? I see her.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.